So the thing here is that a lot of people are asking, how do you get a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee? So in today's conversation, I'm going to answer that question loud and clear. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you're to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. In today's convo, I want to quickly talk about how to get a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee. This might sound a little impossible or improbable to you, but it is possible. Let's first understand the basics. What is a startup business loan? Now, this is any type of financing available to businesses with little to no history. So a variety of business loans and finance methods are available to startups. And here I'm talking about SBA microloans, right? Asset-based loans, business credit cards, and more. But it can be very difficult for new businesses to access funding. And how do a startup business loan work? So basically, there isn't a single type of financing that qualifies as a startup business loan. So if you're looking for a small business loan as a startup, many types of financing can really accommodate your situation. It really depends on what you're looking for. In any case, although business startup loans can work differently based on the specific product and lender, the most important thing I want you to remember here is that the loan works you have to find a financing solution that works for your business. It's very important. And you need to understand how unsecured business loans work. First of all, can you get it? Can you get a loan without collateral? Like I said, it is quite difficult, but it is possible. Many business loan types will require collateral to secure the loan. However, there are a few startup business loans that you can get without collateral, such as specific types of lines of credit, merchant cash advances, and business credit cards. And the one thing I want you to really understand here is that there is a concept of a personal guarantee that you have to, and blanket UCC lien. If you have a personal guarantee attached to your small business startup loan with no collateral requirements, you will still be on the line if you default on the loan. In other words, your business is taking on the debt, right? But a personal guarantee will also make you, the individual business owner or business owners, responsible for the debt in case of default. And another important legal concept here is the blanket UCC lien. So even though lenders might not ask for a specific piece of collateral, many will file a UCC lien on your business. And this means what? It means that if your business defaults on its startup business loan, those lenders have a right to go after your assets to compensate for whatever remaining amount you owe them. Okay? So if you really want to know how to get a startup business loan without collateral, the thing is that there are specific things you need to do, and I'm going to actually show them to you in today's show. So after understanding the basics, you need to know your options. There is a constellation of small business loans for startups out there. And let me just kind of give you the types of startup loans with no credit check and no personal guarantee. First, you have the SBA microloans. So in some cases, you can get an SBA microloan without credit check and personal guarantee if your loan application is solid and you provide other assurances to the lender. You have to understand that the microloans are generally under 50K. So that's really the threshold that the SBA goes for. And they have interest rates ranging from 8% to 13%. Besides microloans, SBA microloans, you also have asset-based financing. So this is any kind of financing that is attached to an asset. And in the business context, we're talking here about equipment. So you have equipment financing, accounts receivable, then you have invoice financing or invoice factoring. And basically, the scheme is very simple. A financing company will offer you an advance of capital in exchange for your outstanding invoices, typically up to 85% of the invoice value. This is when we're talking about invoice financing. But for equipment financing, a lender will finance the purchase of your equipment, sometimes up to 100% of the value of the equipment. Okay, so the typically equipment financing will be issued in a similar fashion to a traditional loan, right? Where you receive a lump sum of capital to purchase the equipment, and then you pay back the lender over time, of course, with the interest. You also have access to business credit cards. So business credit cards are also a type of small business loan, quote unquote loan, with no credit check and no personal guarantee, really, if you think about it, right? So a business credit card is a useful financing product for any business owner. However, they can be particularly helpful in place of a business startup loan for a few reasons. So it's quick, it's easy to apply for, they give you the freedom to borrow as much as you want or as little as you want. And finally, they don't require collateral to secure the credit line. You also have unsecured business lines of credit, right? So business lines of credits are some of the best financing options out there if you really think about it, because they offer borrowers flexible, revolving capital whenever they need it. And so this is kind of cool. So if you need access to quick recurring funding, as most startups tend to, you should consider this your best startup business loan without a collateral requirement. I also want to talk about merchant cash advances. And this is another type of, again, folks, I'm really trying to explain to you, to get a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee, you have to understand the options that are available to you. And MCAs are one of them. So merchant cash advances. So if you're searching for small business startup loans with no collateral necessary, you're sure to come across merchant cash advances. So this is sometimes called a merchant cash advance, sometimes referred to as a cash advance loan, is a quick and easy way to get a startup business loan without collateral. And what happens here is an MCA company can offer you a lump sum of capital you can use to grow your business, and you pay the lender back by allowing them to take a slice of your business's daily credit card sales. Now, the only caveat I want to put here is that they tend to be a little expensive. They are expensive. Merchant cash advance companies quote their prices in factor rates, usually ranging from 1.18 to 1.48. So you want to multiply that factor rate by your loan amount to figure out the total amount you will owe. After that, you convert your factor rate to APR. So when you do the math, you will find that APRs on merchant cash advances can skyrocket, really, reaching the triple digits. Yes, you heard it right, the triple digits in the worst cases. So the bottom line on merchant cash advances is this. As a small business owner who needs startup capital and cannot offer a lender collateral, a merchant cash advance can be easy to qualify for, right? But they should be a last resort for your business financing. They are very expensive. Let's talk about also personal loans for businesses. The thing here is you can actually you can use personal loans to actually fund your startup. This could be an option for very new businesses. In essence, a personal loan for businesses is exactly what the name implies. It's a loan you take out as an individual based on your personal finances, but used for business purposes. One of the benefits of this type of startup business loan is that it can actually be less expensive, right? And besides, it can be much easier to qualify for if you have strong personal finances but limited business history. One thing I want to say though, and there's a big caveat here, it is in our research extremely risky to take on a personal loan for a business, because the bottom line here is that if your business fails and you can't repay the loan, guess what? Your personal finances and credit history are on the line. Moreover, mixing your personal and business finances can put you at risk for organizational, bookkeeping, and even legal issues. I'm not even talking about tax issues, right? Because the IRS has the whole thing about is your business a hobby or a true business? So you don't want to mix those two. Other types of business loans that you might want to check if you are looking for a business loan for a startup with no credit check and no personal guarantee is you have small business grants. Now, those are not like grants are not a traditional replacement for startup business loans, right? However, if you think you can qualify for a grant, you will find one of the most affordable types of startup financing out there, because grants, guess what? They are grants. In other words, they don't need to be repaid. There is a constellation of grants you can apply for, including those from the federal government, state and local governments, as well as those from corporate organizations. We have actually covered this whole grain topic in another show, so you might want to double check that. You can also think about if you have a large entourage, or I would say a deep network of friends and family members, why not asking for your next of kin? You can get cash from them, right? You can actually, you can actually get cash from your entourage, and again, the interest here, the interest rate will be cheaper, definitely, at least logically. So you want to be sure you work with people you trust. So make sure that before you get into any funding agreement, though, whether it is with friends or family, make sure that the contributors understand your business plan, what you'll be doing with the money, and what their role will be in the funding relationship. Because handling the situation as professionally as possible will help prevent issues that could arise in the future. And last but not the least, another option you might want to consider is crowdfunding, right? So you have sites as diverse as Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and GoFundMe. And you can use those crowdfunding platforms to raise some cash. And you can also think about those so-called peer-to-peer sites. So peer-to-peer lending sites. And those are kind of cool too. I'm talking about Peer Forum, LendUp, Lendio, right? So those are platforms that actually are using the new fintech wave to qualify more borrowers, more business borrowers, using a wide area of factors, not just your credit score, not just your credit history, but also things like your personal financial situation, the cash flows of the business, and financial projections for the business. So now I want to talk to you about, so the first step was understand the basics. Second step, know your options. Step number 3, learn to qualify for startup loans. This is very critical, folks. There is no single option for small business startup loans overall. It is very difficult to detail specifically how to get a loan to start a business. Ultimately, the business loan requirements will depend largely on the particular product you're interested in, as well as the lender, financial institution, or investor you're working with. What I'm trying to say here is that you got to learn to qualify for startup loans with no credit check and no guarantee. If you want the lender to actually grant you these two privileges of no credit check and no personal guarantee, you got to do some work on your end, right? And the small business loan requirements for it. So you got to really check all the dots. You have to check all the boxes when it comes to the business loan requirements. And let me give you a few things you need to really think about. When you apply for the loan, you want to actually have a business plan. Is very important. This is just like I would say the funding 101 for startups. You need to have a business plan. And in that business plan, you need to explain a few things or indicate a few things. So time in business. If you are a startup, chances are you have a less than 1 year business history. So your personal credit score, your business credit score, your annual business revenue and profit. If you are a startup, chances are you are going to have some projected data. It is very important. Please include some projections there. Don't just say that, I'm new, the business is new, we're not generating any cash yet, so we're not putting anything. No, you have to put some data and just specify that those are projections. You have to include your bank statements for the business and for yourself for the last 3 months, personal and business tax returns. You have to specify the loan purpose, the desired loan amount, the industry you're in, the entity type. Entity type is very important. Business licenses and permits. So the bank and the lender wants to make sure you are a legit startup and not just any kind of a dodgy company out there. No. You got to provide your EIN. You have to show, again, your balance sheets. So you have balance sheet, income statements and cash flow statements. Those can be projections. Those could be projected data. It's okay. You got to have a copy of your commercial lease if applicable. You have to disclose other debts that you currently have, accounts receivable and accounts payable aging. Those schedules are important. You have to also put things like ownership and affiliations and legal contracts and agreements. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another session of today's conversation, the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. Step number 4. So, step number 1, understand the basics. I'm showing you folks how to get a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee. Step number 1, you need to understand the basics of startup business loans with no credit check and no personal guarantee. Number 2, you got to know your options. Number 3, you need to learn to qualify for startup loans. There is a specific methodology you need to follow to qualify for those loans. Number 4, you need to focus on niche lenders. Okay. Now, where to get no credit check business loans? Not every lender actually provides this kind of loans. You got to really focus on those niche lenders. So, funding for a new unproven business venture can be difficult to acquire. Adding a less than perfect credit score and you search for small business loans may seem futile. So if you're asking yourself, can I find a small business loan, startup loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee requirement? The answer is that you got to look for those niches. So the best startup business loans with no credit check, in our view, based on our research, includes Fundbox. And we have actually covered we have reviewed Fundbox on another show, so double check that. We have a large database of videos there, so you can actually find out what works for you. So Fundbox is one of a handful of alternative lenders that offers invoice financing with no hard credit pull until you know your credit limits and fees. And they offer lines of credits based on invoice collateral from $1,000 to $100,000 at rates starting at 4.66% of your draw amount. So because the Fundbox offers startup financing without the need for a hard credit check, their financing options can be very accessible for small business owners. And you also have PayPal working capital. And it's a great option also if you're looking for a no credit check, no personal guarantee startup loan. And PayPal working capital doesn't require a credit check or credit history to qualify. Instead, what they do is they look at your PayPal sales history. So you got to have a PayPal account. Okay. And you need to have a PayPal Premier of business account for at least 90 days before you can apply for a PayPal working capital loan. And your eligibility for financing largely depends on the number of PayPal sales and transactions you bring in, not your credit score. And the third type is American Express business loans. And American Express cardholders may be eligible for collateral-free financing of up to $75,000. So interest rates on American Express business loans are fixed, and they can actually range from 7% to 20% with terms of 6, 12, 24, or 36 months. All right, number 5 here. The last step here in terms of getting your startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee is you need to apply strategically for startup loans. The word strategy here is important because you're not just going to go online and actually fill in the information needed. You got to call, you got to contact the lender. You have to actually have all your paperwork ready. You need to have a conversation with a loan specialist before you're sending any information. The application process you'll need to complete will vary based on the type of startup loan you choose, right? As well as the lender or investor you're working with. So if you're applying for a more traditional type of financing like a microloan or line of credit, you can expect to fill out an application with your basic personal and business information, as well as provide certain documentation. I've already said that before. You got to think about, at a minimum, you got to think about your EIN, your business bank account statements, your personal credit score, your financial business plan, your business financial statements. One thing that's very important to understand here is that when you contact the lender and speak to a loan specialist, you want to actually explain the situation to them, and they will advise you what you need to do. They will advise you about the next steps, whether you have to fill out the application on the internet, or you can send them a paper application. If you want to increase your chances of getting a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee, be ready to make a presentation. In other words, and the presentation doesn't have to be on the lender's premises. You can actually do a presentation online via Zoom or Teams or WebEx, whatever. You can actually, the bottom line here is you want to give yourself a chance to impress the lender and explain to them what your business is about so you can get the loan. All right. And so you got to have a business plan, but you also need to have a pitch deck. All right. This is very important. You have to understand that. And once you do this, you're able to move on to the next level. They will let you know if they're interested in your business model and how much they can finance your operations. This is very, very important. So folks, the bottom line here is that do small business startup loans with no credit checks and no personal guarantee exist? Yes. With a little bit of creativity, you can actually come up with the capital you need to start your business. And even if you can't quite draw up a small business startup loan with no credit check, by spending responsibly with a secured business credit card, your road to accessing small business startup funding will be smooth, even if this funding does require a credit check. So to finalize here, the recap, folks, the 5 steps you need to follow to get a startup business loan with no credit check and no personal guarantee. Number 1, understand the basics. Number 2, know your options. Number 3, learn to qualify for startup loans. Number 4, focus on niche lenders. And number 5, apply strategically for startup loans. I will see you next time. Good luck on everything. And until then, remember, stay marvelous.